I created the ultimate CEO stack. Not just some pile of nootropics and stimulant abuse, the actual stack for the highest output possible. I've curated the perfect list for the CEO, the billionaire, call it whatever you want. If someone wanted to become the most elite, optimal human being on the planet and money was no object, this is the full breakdown. Most videos like this will just push some brain gummy or some pile of nootropics. I'm breaking down the 4 systems in the human body that we're targeting to create the highest level of output physically possible. You might have heard of some of these before, but I'll guarantee there's some of them you haven't, because some of them are brand new to this page, never been discussed before, but I have had some incredible experiences. If you're someone watching who truly wants to improve their overall productivity and output, it's important you watch this video in its entirety, because by the end of it, I'm going to be going over a few key points that most people think are the detriment of their productivity when it's actually their greatest area for opportunity. But before we get started, it's important to note that, guys, I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice, and anything I say in this video, if you want to follow this protocol, it's important you only do so under direct supervision of a medical director and a specialist in this type of medicine. Now, without any further, let's get started. When it comes to truly creating the highest output possible, most people ask the wrong question. Everybody says, how do I get more energy? The better question to ask is, what system is broken? Most people wake up and immediately start their day with something like caffeine because they can't produce energy on their own. I figured today would be the best opportunity to do my first video ever filmed in the morning. You can see the lighting is a little bit different because I really wanted to harp on the fact that you can wake up at 7 a.m. like it is right now and be spry and ready to go without stimulants like caffeine. Now, it's also important to note, I don't think caffeine is unhealthy or bad for you. I just think people are using it as a band-aid to cover up a much larger problem. That problem usually falls in one of the 4 systems of the body we're going to go over here today, starting with the first one, which is brain signaling. This is really important for any of you who have ever felt like you're awake, but you're not online yet. You ever wonder why sometimes you feel like you get a great night's sleep, you do your routine fine, but now it's time to work and it feels like your brain's just got 40 tabs open and it can't really run at full speed? Everyone's gut reaction right here is, let me go throw a pot of coffee on and get myself working. The problem isn't stimulation, it's the connection in your brain. Which brings me to the very first thing I would include if I was a CEO and I needed the highest level of output possible. I don't just want to be able to run all day, I want to be able to run effectively. That starts with Cmax. Cmax is known for producing 2 things in the brain: BDNF, which stands for brain-derived nootropic factor, and NGF, which stands for nerve growth factor. Simply put, these are the support factors for brain and nerve wiring. It's not energy in a caffeine sense. It's more like installing upgrades on the pathways your brain uses to think, speak, recall memory, and execute. The best way to imagine this is, imagine the brain as one giant map of a trail system running through the woods. When the trails are covered in branches, rocks, and debris, no matter what, you typically have to slow down to navigate the obstacles. The difference between Cmax and caffeine is caffeine says, let's make the runner run faster. He might twist his ankle on some of that debris or trip over a branch. Cmax says, let's remove the debris from the pathway to give the runner an easier path. You know that feeling when you get into flow state and everything just starts clicking, your memory's there, all of a sudden you become incredible at your job? That's what Cmax helps people create on a daily basis. In my own experience, Cmax has been incredible for me. I've done 4 separate runs at it, and every single time that I notice it improves. That's also because I'm doing other things to optimize the rest of my brain and body to give it an even clearer pathway. But I have been a tremendous fan of Cmax. There's only one caveat to Cmax. That's if you're having a hard time sleeping, it's only going to pour gas on the fire. So it's very important to add its slightly less hot cousin, Selank. Selank's really important because it acts like the brake pedal. Sometimes Cmax can become overly powerful and just make it so your brain never turns off, which sounds cool in theory, but when it's time to go to bed, you want a quiet, peaceful mind in order to operate at the highest level the next day. This is where a lot of people get it wrong, because they just think, I need more output, I need more, but not realizing that rest is one of the most important functions of the brain. This is the second half to the brain signaling piece. Today, more than ever, we see people feel like they're getting distracted, and a lot of people think it's because they have ADHD or they're lazy, but a lot of times it's because their brain is so overworked that it's looking for the path of least resistance, not trying to dive into their aggressive pile of workload. Selank acts on the GABA receptors, which is how our body processes anxiety, stress, and is able to turn those knobs all the way down. If I was to think about how the two work together, your brain is the computer, Cmax is like making the Wi-Fi stronger and faster, Selank is like closing the 19 tabs to make sure that it has the ability to operate at its regular function. Now, if you follow this page, you guys know I like to not just cover the peptides, but also the supplements that support their work. Most people look at this as, I just want to take these peptides that are going to give me these results. Every single stack and every single cycle needs to have a support system of supplements that is going to make sure that you get the intended results. In this case, it's alpha alpha GPC and Uridine. Alpha GPC helps with choline. Choline helps the body make acetylcholine, which is a very important brain nerve involved in attention, learning, memory, all of the functions of our brain. It's not nearly as intricate as something like Semax, but the best way I can describe this is Semax would be like upgrading your printer, having the best printer in the world, but if there's no ink in that printer, then it's useless. Alpha GPC is that ink in the printer. It's gonna make sure the output of what we're trying to create actually happens. So those nerves that we're trying to expand, those pathways that we're trying to improve, it makes sure that those are actually in place at the right place in the right time. On the other side, Uridine helps with the membranes of our brain cells themselves, as well as synapse. Synapse is how the brain cells communicate to each other. This is the key difference between a stack and a cycle. Cycle is just a random combination of crap that someone on the internet told you to take. Stack is a fully curated list of making sure that the top end things also have the bottom end of the funnel to make sure everything connects and creates that desired outcome. They do 80% of the work. They get the things that are gonna do all of the heavy lifting, but they don't plug in that support system. It's kind of like having the best 5 basketball players on the planet, but they're never gonna win a 48-minute game if they don't have a bench. If each of them have to play 48 minutes every single game, they're gonna get smoked. By the end of the season, they're gonna be toast. Their bodies are gonna be destroyed because they don't have anybody that can come in and help carry the load. This is the difference. This is how you get the real output. While we're on the topic of preservation, this moves me into the next thing that is absolutely pivotal for anybody who wants to have extreme prolonged output, and that is Pinealon. Pinealon is important for 2 different functions of the brain. One of them is gene expression, which in basic terms means that the instructions that our body is giving to our cells to turn things up or to turn things down, that message is going to be received more clearly. Take protein synthesis, for example. The cells that are building the proteins need instructions to perform that function. Pinealon is not something that you're going to take and just feel locked in by 9 a.m. like Semax. This is more like servicing the car to make sure that it never goes bad. This isn't like Semax where you take it and all of a sudden things are clear and locked in. It's not like clearing the branches out of that trail from before. It's more like going to the forest management plan and saying, hey, we're gonna bring in landscapers and really spruce this place up to make sure it looks good for a long time. Routine maintenance, if you will. Most people go their entire lives never giving their brain a maintenance. The brain is an expensive tool, especially when it comes to cellular currency. That moves me into section number 2, energy. Not the energy you're thinking of, cellular energy, the kind that really matters. And if you've been following this page, you know that I just finished up one of the most insane mitochondrial energy experiments that I believe anybody has ever conducted, and I have some really great findings for it. I'm going to incorporate some of them in this stack. The first one is NAD+. If you don't know anything about cellular energy and you just need a basic crash course on how to get more of it, ATP is your cellular energy currency. If we're going to find a way to make this as simple as possible, imagine your body is one big bank account of energy dollars, right? And everything you want to do, whether that be thinking, running, lifting, anything that requires being awake and conscious, all of it costs some amount of cellular energy. Now, the amount of money that you have in that bank account is your ATP. Adding NAD+ is essentially adding more money to your bank account, giving you more cellular currency to perform more bodily functions. Now, at a base level, this doesn't sound like it's the most revolutionary thing in the world because you can already run, you can already lift, you feel like you're fine. But when it comes to the internal mechanisms of the body, and when it comes to actually getting the desired output from those tasks, most people are completely in debt of ATP. Now, all of this revolves around my newfound love, which is the mitochondria, which is where all of this energy is produced in the first place. But it's very important that we know these basics. NAD is like adding more energy. Now, moving on to how do we improve the structure of the bank? This is where SS-31 becomes pivotal. Now, I will say, I have gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of celebrities, a lot of musicians, athletes, performers, CEOs of other giant companies, all the great things. If there is anything that has been incredibly beneficial for some of the highest net worth clientele that I work with, it is SS-31. All of them love it. And I'll tell you why these people have such an affinity for it is because SS-31 doesn't add anything new in. It doesn't create a higher level of output. All it does is help restore all the damage that you've done to your mitochondrial membranes. For anybody who's been burning the candle at both ends, who's spent 14, 16, 18 hours a day working for years and years and years, or who's pushed their body to the highest limits imaginable in human existence, these are the people who have the most shattered mitochondrial membranes. And these are the people who get the best result from things like SS-31 because again, it's not going to give you those superpowers that you're thinking of. Those come later, but it's going to give you the ability to operate at your best level. Imagine if you had never had any of that stress on the body, or eaten that fast food, or drank that alcohol, or did those drugs. This is the complete restructuring of your internal cells and mitochondria. Now pay close attention, because a lot of these things are going to start linking together. What's important about a stack is how everything works together. It's a synergy. SS-31 helps create an environment where mitochondrial production can operate at its peak natural levels. Imagine our mitochondria is one big cup, and we're going to try to pour more NAD into that cup. We can't pour more NAD to that cup because the cup has holes in it and all of the water is leaking out. That's what most people's mitochondrial membranes look like after what they put themselves through. So the first thing we need to do is patch those holes in the cup to make sure that we can even pour anything into it. SS-31 is patching those holes in the cup. And remember, everything in the body has mitochondria. It's not a part of the body. It's in everything in the body. Every muscle, all of your organs, especially your brain, is covered in cells. Every cell, in order to provide the function that it's trying to do, has to have some sort of cellular output, some sort of energy. And this is where we learn the phrase, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You guys nailed it. If that powerhouse is in shambles and all the workers are crippled, it doesn't matter how much extra output you ask them to have, they're not going to be able to carry the load. Now, when it comes to this bucket, there's two supplements I think are really valuable here. That's taurine and creatine. Creatine you guys have probably heard of. Creatine is really effective, not just for building a body, but also building a brain. It's really effective at ATP recycling, which, remember what we talked about, ATP is that currency. Everything that we're going to do is going to cost some level of cellular energy, right? I want to go for a run today. That costs me some energy. I want to work for 8 hours, that's going to cost me some energy. ATP recycling is taking that maybe $1 that I spent on this 1 hour activity and saying, okay, now I'm going to get 50 cents of it back. Most people only look at creatine for what it does to the body, not what it does to the brain. And from what I've seen, the effects on the brain are far more profound than any effect that they have on the body. And it's pretty sick on the body. So that tells you how cool it can. Taurine I like to describe as being so boring, but in the best way. A lot of people have a misconception about taurine because it's in a lot of these nootropic stacks. It's not the turbo button, it's not the nitrous. It is the coolant that keeps the engine running. Now into bucket number 3, and it is my favorite bucket because it's the one that started it all for me. It's the first thing I looked at improving in my body that when I did it, I said, holy shit, how could I have not known this sooner? And that is hormonal optimization. Now, I know you guys have heard this before, testosterone optimization, whatever, all these great things. If you have not looked at your levels yet, and you are still wondering why in the world you don't feel like $1 million every single day, this is the #1 lever to pull. And the main reason is in the mid 80s is when we started using plastics to package everything in our food, our water, everything that we consume. The second part is all of the pesticides and extra chemicals that we're spraying on all of our food that are also complete hormone disruptors. Now you mix that in with all the societal factors like our sedentary lifestyle, office life, all of these things creating the perfect storm to destroy the human body. Now, if you are in those 40s and 50s and you're noticing this decline, or you're not feeling as strong, as sharp as you used to be, this is where hormones become pivotal. For time's sake, I don't need to bore you guys with why testosterone is important in the body. If you're interested in that, I have hundreds of other videos on this. At the end of the day, testosterone is what's going to give you drive. It is what makes a man want to succeed. It is what gives anybody ambition. And it is the reason that some people wake up out of bed and feel ready to attack the day. And it's the reason why other guys hit snooze on the alarm. Not to mention it makes it really easy to be in really great shape, which is another pivotal part when it comes to being a really high performing executive, is you need to have the body to back it up. All of these concerns and problems get mitigated when you have a good physique. And I'll have a whole separate video on how to actually build a body, but it is important to know that hormones are great for the body, but more importantly, they're great for the brain. It just changes your mindset about how you look at the world. A lot of what people worry about, like threats and fear, completely shifts and turns into opportunity. And that is the greatest level of confidence that hormonal balance provides people. For stuff like this, I honestly don't even tell people to start with TRT. Most people are getting benefit from Enclomiphene, which I've said this before, but I think is going to be one of the most revolutionary compounds to hit the face of the earth, and not enough people are looking at it right now. Enclomiphene, not clomiphene citrate. Anybody who gives you Clomid or Clomiphene, I think should be banned from medicine. Moving on to the fourth and final bucket, and that is resilience. All of this stuff is awesome and you can make your body have this crazy output for these short sprints, but how do you have this for the next 10 years? And that comes in bulletproofing the body, in which I always recommend to start is the Wolverine Blend, BPC-157 and TB-500. If you've looked at anything in peptides, you've probably heard about BPC-157 1,000 freaking times. But if you're new, it stands for Body Protection Compound 157. And its job is to supply the building blocks that the body uses to patch up its damage. Now, this isn't like we talked about SS-31 on the cellular membrane level. level. This is on a soft tissue and nerve level. The reason I'm also a really big fan of these things is they help receptor connectivity. So they make all of your receptors better adept to receive the messages that all the different peptides and pills and everything are sending to the body. This is different than signal. Signal is what's sending the message, receptors are what's receiving the message, and then the output is what happens after. I could sit here and tell you about all the physical benefits you'll get from this as well in terms of repairing your body. You know, if you've got a bad knee, a bad elbow, a bad shoulder, a lot of that goes away very quickly. But really, I think the biggest asset to BPC-157 and TB-500 is what it does to the body in terms of structural integrity. If we want to imagine the body as one big construction site, BPC-157 is the giant blocks of marble that are being carried to those sites to build up this new structure. TB-500 is the one distributing where these trucks are going to go. When it comes to nerve development, the best place we want to see that is in our brains. If we want to operate at the highest possible output, the structural integrity of how our brain is built becomes incredibly important. Building that structural integrity requires cellular energy in order to operate that function. Once we have the ability to produce more signal output, we want to increase our ability and desire to use it. So guys, you can see how all of these things start to connect to each other. And if you're interested in videos like this and you want to find more ways to improve the human brain, the human body, or anything related to being a human being, I post 2 videos like this every single week. Hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next one, and I will see you guys in the next one.